Okay, today is March 19th, 2018, and right now at 10:45 p.m. we have a temperature of 51 degrees here in the foothills of Los Angeles. The relative humidity is 59%, and the dew point is 37 degrees, and the barometer is at 30.05 inches. All right, so we're looking at the northeast Pacific water vapor loop. Right here we have a 992 millibar storm system right here, which is slowly inching its way to the east towards California. We have jet stream flow around this low, which is blockaded by high pressure. We can see this dark area around that storm system that is preventing any moisture from getting into that vortex. The moisture that is wrapping around and getting into this vortex is being cut off by this transmitter manipulation, and that's what is causing the occluded fronts to show up on the surface analysis map. Now, if we take a look at the one of these pressure maps, let's take a look at the surface pressure map right now. We can see a lot of manipulation right over Nevada and Utah, Arizona, as well as California, right in this area. And we have high pressure 1018 millibar right here blocking the eastbound movement of this storm. So when we look at the map here, the infrared map for the western U.S., we can see what's happening as that moisture field, this very deep moisture field wrapping around that low, moving into California. We had nothing but just a heavy blanket of chemical aerosols all day long. No rain. But look what's happening to this deep moisture field as it moves into California. It just breaks down completely, and that's because of all the transmitter manipulation. The descending air from these transmitters, they're heating the atmosphere that is evaporating this moisture as it moves in. And then we have the chemtrail aerosols, which behave like a buffer. That is, they cap the atmosphere, they sponge up the atmospheric moisture, lower the relative humidity, and essentially prevent the precipitation process. And so when we look at the Doppler map here right now for the west coast, we can see that we do have a little bit of rain precipitation just south of the Bay Area right here, but otherwise really nothing. Earlier today, this was completely devoid of any rain. There was just a small amount offshore. And all day long, we've been keeping an eye on the skies. This morning, very early, we could see out on the west horizon, and also the southwest and south horizons. There was just a tide, a heavy, very, very heavy tide of chemtrail aerosols being sprayed offshore to prevent any precipitation today. The rain is not scheduled to begin until I think it's Wednesday, and so that's what we're seeing here. We should be getting rain the last couple of days because of this flow pattern. Once again, we can see out here on the East Coast, we have plenty of rain going on there, right through here. The Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, all this is getting weather, but out here, everything has been sprayed over so heavily with the chemtrail haze. It was really just quite a contrast. The last few days we had some very nice weather, rain clouds, clean air, and now we're right back to the same old thing temporarily until these people decide when they're going to move this in, and the spigot will turn on, and we're probably going to have a lot of rain. According to the fake news media, we could have up to 8 to 10 inches. We're hearing some weather services are predicting 6 to 8, and others are saying 6 to 10. We don't know, but we'll keep an eye on the Doppler map and see what develops. Right here in the infrared map, we can see the center of this low is being isolated by all that high pressure that's been installed around the perimeter of that vortex. And this will ensure that none of this moisture out here gets into that vortex. Higher pressure always flows to lower pressure, except in this case here. In the case of weather manipulation, we see routinely that low pressure systems, we see that the moisture bounces off a barrier. I call this an electronic wall. These satellite transmitters set up this perimeter, and that prevents any strengthening of the system by way of moisture getting into that vortex, feeding that vortex. Here in the infrared map, we can see some straight edges forming towards the end of the loop. Just a kind of a slight right angle right there. And we see the moisture moving into California with no precipitation. Now, earlier today, this was a 990 millibar storm system with 2 lows showing up on the surface analysis map. We can take a look at the surface map right now. And here we see just 1 low depicted, 992 millibar, heading due east. So this has weakened just slightly. And we see that occluded front again, this purple occluded front. That's the transmitter manipulation occurring right on that vortex. And we can see the high pressure barrier right just to the east. And there's a trough shown here. And so it's going to be quite interesting to see what happens. That storm system is churning up 33-foot swells as of right now. We've watched the swells actually strengthen quite a bit in the last 24 hours. I think last night we had 19 feet. Now we're up to 33 feet right here in the center. And this was a dual low pressure system. That's why we're seeing an area over here. But this is all going to move towards the coast of California. So the people up on the west-facing beaches are going to get some pretty high surf here in the next probably 3 days. All right, let's take a look at the once again the western U.S. water vapor map. This is a really big storm. It's almost the size of a hurricane when you compare the diameter of this thing to half of the country, or a third. If it wasn't for all this this barrier of high pressure surrounding this area right here, we'd have a much bigger weather system. And we can see the lack of some of this doesn't have, we don't have clockwise rotation all the way around this area of low pressure. Like for instance right here, we can see some manipulation occurring. If we go to the SSEC map, we might be able to see that a little bit better. You can see a right angle developing right towards the beginning of that loop, right here, right there. So we see the manipulation also occurring right here. There's no there's no counterclockwise rotation right there for a period of time. So what's happening here is that these people that are controlling these transmitters from space are pulsing the power on the center of this low. It's not continuous power, so we don't have a very well-defined right angle like we see in some of these videos. This is they're trying to hide their work, although we can see the angles here, the straight edges and so forth. And of course, in certain areas, we can see that there is no counterclockwise rotation. Typically, we see that in right near the where the rectangle is forming. That stops all the counterclockwise movement because we have heat right here generating that that angle, and the heat causes the descending air, and that counteracts the counterclockwise rotation and actually weakens the storm. Then we can see here also that the perimeter that's around this low, nothing's getting into that low except for right up here, and that'll soon be cut off by the next pulse of transmitter power. That'll cut this off, and that's how they continue to modulate and throttle the power of that system. So they know exactly what they're doing. Okay, we saw that map. Let's take a look at the jet stream map here. We can see that we've got jet stream flow right into California. We've Got the storm right here. Everything is wrapping around and moving right into the entire state. And once again, we have the surface analysis map, or rather the sea level pressure map. We see all these squiggly lines. That's where all the residual high pressure is being maintained to prevent this from moving in until such time. The 500 millibar map, we see some squiggly lines, but we see the closed low there. And the same is with the same thing here with the 300 millibar map. Okay, so that's pretty much the report for tonight. Tomorrow, I think that we're going to see the same activity in the skies. The jets will be up spraying to prevent this rain until Wednesday. Spigot will be off tomorrow. Although we have plenty of rain, we should be having plenty of rain from that flow pattern. But look at it, it's all breaking down right when it gets into California there. It's amazing. Look at the continuity over here compared to what's happening right here. Okay, that's it.